Hey guys, it's your girl Ray, and today we're here for some healing on Champagne Vibes with Angel LaShonn.
Step into the champagne vibes. Come and catch the vibe. Step into the champagne vibes. Come and catch the vibe.
Welcome to Champagne Vibes with me, Angel LaShonn. And today we have a more serious topic. We're going to get into some healing. And I have Ray here with me as my guest. And she is a domestic violence survivor. So thank you, Ray, for joining me.
Of course.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good today that I can be some awareness to some people that are going through what I'm going through and not really ready to talk about it yet. So I feel really good today.
So what gives you the courage to come today and talk about this?
My therapist. Shout out to my therapist because she has gave me the courage to be able to talk about this more, be more open about it, and not feel, judged talking about it. So it's definitely a healing process that I'm going through, and I'm great that I can be at a place now where I can actually talk about it.
Okay. So, well, let's talk about it. I purposely, in getting to know you, I haven't asked you much about your story because I wanted to save that for now.
Right.
But I would just like you to open up and kind of tell me how it started, like how your relationship started, and just go through the journey with me. What's your story?
Of course. So I was with my high school sweetheart. We were together since ninth grade. And I went through this at a very young age. So, you think going through something at a young age is not what it is until you are aware of what it is. So we were together for 7 years. I was on this journey and I was in this relationship that was very toxic. And it just broke me completely. It broke me down to nothing. And then I had to...
What was toxic about it?
Everything. Every way possible that you can think about being in a domestic violence relationship, as far as emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. And it didn't start off that way. I will say that. The relationship didn't start off toxic. It kind of just progressed in me learning that person and learning their traits that I wasn't aware that it was toxic until the physical started, but before it was just verbal and emotional.
So, give us examples of the verbal and the emotional experience.
Yeah, for sure. I was controlled. I was told what I could and couldn't wear. I was told who I could and couldn't hang out with. If I put on something or did something in the house that he didn't like, it was a verbal lash out of why are you doing this? It's supposed to be done this way. And then my weight kind of fluctuated in high school. I was up and down, so it was verbal that way of telling me who am I losing weight for, who am I trying to look good for. So it was controlling in every way and aspect you can possibly think of, honestly.
So where do you think that came from? Was it insecurities within him, or was that a learned behavior?
I think it was a little bit of both. And as I got older and me and my journey, I was learning that, 9 times out of 10 things that people do, it's been done to them or they've seen it. So I would assume he was in a house where his mom was being abused. I don't know for sure, but that's what I would assume because we were in high school. Like I said, what are you learning this behavior for in high school? At the time we were. I want to say I think it was done to him in his house. And I think that's why he had those characteristics in him.
So fast forward from high school up until now, when did you guys break up?
2 years out of college. I graduated 2011 teen. So 2011, and then 2014 is when the last straw was done. Mm-hmm. But for, if anyone knows, for domestic violence abusers, it takes you a while because you leave and then you're done with the situation as far as being in the relationship, but you're still there as far as answering them. And then you have this guilt where you feel like I still need to communicate with them. So I went through that too. I was out of the relationship, but then I was still kind of there, if that makes sense.
So walk me through a time where you knew, no question about it, this is domestic violence. What was that day like? What happened?
Yeah, I was at a basketball game. We were at a basketball game, and after the game, I saw him talking to a girl. So, I approached him like, hey, we're about to go. And we started fighting right there. It wasn't only abuse that happened inside the home, it happened outside in public. It happened, wherever we were, and he felt like it was time for him to lash out at me, he would lash out at me.
You mean fighting like arguing or like fighting?
No, like fighting.
Physically
like
fighting.
physically fighting.
So how did you feel in a moment like that fighting a guy?
At first, I was fearful. Like when it first happened, the first physical abuse happened, I was terrified. But then it kind of you become numb to it and you become used to it. So for me, and I wasn't a fighter, he taught me how to fight. Honestly, like I learned to fight by fighting him. So that is how I learned to defend myself, protect myself. In any situation, it was just I was always on 10.
So it sounds like at some point you learned that behavior. He learned that behavior from somewhere, and then you learned that behavior from him, and then you carried that behavior on in other areas of your life.
I did. Not so much with women, but with men, I'm very defensive. Me as a person, I'm very defensive. I used to be. I'll say I used to be very defensive. And I was just always, I had PTSD from this. I have anxiety from it. Like, I was always just watching my surroundings and just making sure, like, I'm always ready for whatever is about to come to me.
Because you feel like you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, I have to protect myself at all times.
So, like, this happened last time, 2014?
Yes, 2014 was, 2014 was the last altercation that we got into where I was just like, you have to go. Like, that was the last beating where I knew if I stayed, I was either going to be in jail or I was going to die.
Tell me about that.
So I went to his house to break up with him because I had had enough. And I got there, we had a conversation, we talked, it was fine. As I was getting in the car to go, though, I guess it came upon him like, you know what, if I can't have you, nobody can have you.
He literally said that?
Yeah, he said that. He's like, if I can't have you, nobody can have you.
That's crazy because you hear people saying, like, domestic abusers have that mentality or that thought process. But I never thought that they would actually, I never thought that I would actually hear someone tell me that they literally came out and said, if I can't have you, no one else will. Yeah. That's like some movie type
It was.
stuff.
He's like, oh, you think you're coming here to break up with me? That's not going to fly. Like, if I can't have you, then no one's going to have you. And then he literally started beating on me and we started fighting. But this one was different because, we fight. We've fought before. He's hit me and we've hit. But this one was like the blows to the face constantly.
But I need you to pause in that because even when you say, he beat me, he started hitting me, it's like, oh, yeah, he just punched me real quick. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost to the point where even though it was, 8 years ago, it's still kind of normal to you.
I am just now getting in a process where I'm actually healing. Like, this is my first time ever talking about it. So for a very long time, I think I was just at rock bottom and going through it by myself. Like, in the Black community, we don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about going to a therapist. So I was just like, I'm dealing with this by myself. Like, my parents didn't know what I was going through until the last altercation. Nobody knew what I was going through but myself. Like, people saw us out in public fighting, but they didn't know, the extent. They just probably thought it was a fight right there. But nobody really knew what I was going through at home with this man until the last altercation.
So it was the last altercation that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And you said you felt like he was going to kill you.
Yeah, I did. I didn't think I was going to make it out alive that night, honestly. I really didn't.
Describe that moment.
Sorry, give me a moment, guys. It was hard because this is somebody you grew up with, you saw your life with. So for me, my parents have been married for 40 years. I never really experienced this. So it was just like, how did I let myself get here kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So for me, I had to really get into myself and say, like, this is not something you can stay to do. Like, you have to leave, because if I stay, then like I said, I was either going to be dead or no one really knew what I was going through. So it was just something within myself that said, leave and don't come back, and like, don't look back. It doesn't matter like what people say about you. It doesn't matter what people might think, but just leave and don't look back. And that's what I did.
So do you feel like in you staying, you were staying because you didn't want to admit that you were dealing with domestic abuse?
Yeah, it was fear. It was being judged. It was a lot of emotions that go through your head, and you're just like, who's gonna believe me? Like, because I didn't have any physical bruises, nothing was ever on my face. Like, I hid it very well. So it was also that, like, well, who's gonna believe that you're going through this? You've been with this person for this long, like, But after the last altercation where I was beat like bad, this was the time where you can see it physically, and like.
So like, how bad was it?
I had to call the ambulance back. Like.
You had to call the ambulance back?
No, had to call the ambulance to come check me out because it was so bad. Oh, and then the whole time his grandmother and brother watched.
No.
So that's another thing that literally triggered me, and it wasn't. No one came to save me. I had to literally fight myself out of a fight, leave where I was. I drove to the nearest gas station and I asked them to please call an ambulance, and that's how I got away.
I'm glad you got away. I'm proud of you for taking the step to make the decision. And one of the things that I heard you say that really stuck with me is, even in the midst of like being beat on, you took a second to say, how did I get here?
Yeah, I really did.
And that's something a lot of us have to, whether it's a domestic violence situation or just a bad situation, it's like the best question you can ask yourself that will motivate you to get out is, how did I get here? Because if you know how you got there, you know how you can get out.
How you can get out. And that is, for me, that was the biggest lesson of just not feeling ashamed anymore that I was in a situation. It was more so picking myself up and now getting out of something that I allowed myself to get so far in. And it was just picking myself up, and it's still a healing process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I need people to understand that it took me literally just last year is where I started feeling like myself again.
So what made you decide to go and get into therapy?
Just because I thought I could heal myself. So I thought that I could, handle my anxiety attacks. I thought I could. When I'm depressed, I'm just at home for a little bit, I seclude myself from everybody, but it started to be constant, and it started to change the way I was with people. And I just noticed, like, I need to talk about this, because it's been almost 7 years ago, and I still cry about it every time I talk about it. So for me, it was like, I want to be able to come to a point where I don't have to feel the emotions I feel when I talk about it. I'm now healing, and I'm making awareness to the women around that it's okay. And your healing process, it doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as you're taking the steps to being healed.
Yeah.
Really.
And just to reiterate, it's nothing for you to be ashamed of. Like, whether you allowed it, whether you didn't allow it, whether it, you were bamboozled by it, don't be ashamed. Speak up. Ask for the help that you need. Tell your family. Like, typically, most people always have at least one person in their corner. So that one person, if it's one person or 10 people, speak up.
Yeah, you're right. And my one person would have been my mom, but because I was so ashamed, and I felt like I would let her down by letting her know what I was dealing with, I kept it from her. But that hurt her more when she found out. She was aware of it. She was really hurt that I didn't, like you said, speak up and know that I can come to her with anything. But again, when you're in that situation, you just feel so ashamed. You feel like, people are going to judge you. So even the closest people to you, you don't feel comfortable talking to them about it. But like Angel said, it's something that you should definitely talk to people about.
So as far as your healing journey is concerned, like, what have been like monumental moments where you knew you were growing and getting better?
So for me, it was my depression and certain triggers. Like I live here now in Atlanta, but I'm originally from South Florida. And so when I would go back home to visit, I would be paranoid. Like I'm watching my surroundings. I'm making sure that he's not following me or he's nowhere near where I'm from. So for me now, my monumental things is not having those things trigger me anymore. I can go home now and be at ease. I'm not paranoid. I'm not thinking that somebody's coming to get me. And just being unapologetically me and where I am in my healing process. It's okay to be okay, honestly.
And it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, that too. It's
Yep.
okay to not be okay.
So one thing I want people to know and understand is that your journey is your journey. Every experience is not going to be a great one. It's about how you come out of that experience. So I'm proud of you in coming to talk about this, because I know you said like you've never really been able to talk about it without crying.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were courageous enough to come and tell us your story while you're still going through the healing journey, I really appreciate that. And I hope that this has been a safe space for you to do so. And I want to encourage you to keep telling your story, because you never know who you're going to help get out of a situation that's like yours or possibly worse than yours.
Right.
So when it comes down to where you are now in your healing journey, I know you still have a ways to go, but for now, what would you say the best advice is that you've received through your journey so far?
So yeah, my best advice is to give yourself time, give yourself grace. Don't try to rush your healing process. Don't try to think that because you've had 5 or 7 good days and then you have something that triggers you back to a bad day, that it's the end of the world. Like, it's okay, because you're going to have those days. You're going to have times where you're triggered and you can't control it. But just know that if you give yourself time and you actually want to do the healing, it will be done perfect. It'll be done at the right time.
God's timing is perfect.
Yes.
And okay, that's the best advice that you've received. What advice can you give to people, not just women, but people that are experiencing domestic violence now and don't have the courage to leave?
The best advice I can give is don't be afraid to tell someone what is going on in your situation, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, because it's hard to do it yourself. It really is. And it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to get you out of that situation. So my best advice to give, man or woman, because we all go through it, is to just speak out more and don't try to cover up for the person that you're with, because it will only hurt you in the process.
I think that's good feedback, because in a lot of things, we as women and even men, like, they're protectors as well. When you love someone, your initial reaction is to protect them or cover up for them because you know their potential, or you feel like they're going to be better or they're going to get better. But one thing I understand in life is that you can't change a person. A person has to want to change for themselves. So if what they are doing is bringing you down, you have to know when to take a step back and choose you.
Yeah.
So thank you for choosing you.
Yes.
And thank you for choosing me to share your story with.
Of course.
And I'm praying for you as you continue in your healing journey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Of course. We're going to cheers
for coming
to that.
on Champagne Vibes.
Of course.
Cheers to healing and happiness, and a man that's going to love you, right?
Yes, because he's
protect you, protect your heart, your body, and your spirit.
Amen to that.
Bye, y'all.